Hello everybody and welcome to another video, and today we're going to be revisiting a band that I checked out back in the beginning of May, I believe it was, a band called Neon Empire. They had contacted me back then. They were a brand new band. They wanted me to check out their EP, which came out in June, shortly after I'd done the video, and they were a very interesting band to me. I found them quite interesting because they're a metalcore band. They are a metalcore band, but they are a metalcore band with a difference, and that's what interested me, because most metalcore I tend to find can get a little bit samey. Obviously there is some metalcore that I do enjoy, but I do tend to find a lot of bands start to sound very samey in the metalcore genre. You know, they use the same style of harsh vocals, they use the same style of clean vocals, you know, so they start to sound a bit samey. But Neon Empire had something different, something that made them unique and interesting, and that's because they had electronica in their music as well. And that was absolutely fascinating, and it was very, very interesting. And like I say, it made them unique. It made them stand out. It mixed things up a bit with the band. So, you know, I really enjoyed it when I heard their EP, and it was quite a nice, pleasant surprise. So, needless to say, they were quite happy with the fact that I enjoyed that, and they contacted me a couple of days ago, maybe about a week ago, I can't remember exactly, and asked me if I wouldn't mind checking out their new track, which comes out today, December 19th. So I was more than happy to have a look at it. Now, with it being a brand new track and with it coming out only today, I have no lyrics for the track. I actually stupidly forgot to ask whether they could supply me with any lyrics, which is very unlike me, because that's normally one of the first things I ask. But I failed to ask if they had any lyrics available for me, so that's my bad. So we're not going to be able to look in depth at the lyrics unless I can pick it out, but I have been told that they've gone for a slightly different sound on this track, so I'm quite interested to see what they mean by that. But anyway, the new track is called Wrath, so we're going to jump in and have a look at this track and see what we shall see. So yes, Wrath, or Wrath, depends how you want to pronounce it, by Neon Empire. Let's have a look. Wrath! Inside of me, ready to wait for the world to stay, just waiting for the storm so helplessly. Take him out of Well, there we go. Wrath by Neon Empire. And again, another good track. They sound and feel considerably heavier in this track than they did in the other track, which I can't remember. Was it This Clarity, I think it was called? I can't remember. But anyway, they feel considerably heavier in this track. And whilst there is still electronic in there, it's not as... doesn't feel as prominent as it did in the EP that I checked out. You know, I feel like, you know, there are parts where you can really hear it really well, but I feel like in the heavier parts of the song, the electronica sort of gets drowned out a bit. You know, you can just hear it on the edge of the music, but I do feel like maybe the heavier parts of the music maybe drown out the electronic elements just a little bit, so it doesn't feel as prominent as it did, and that was one of the main things that I found very, very interesting about the band. And that was in terms of the structure of that song, it was very, very interesting. You know, they had these very, very heavy parts. They had these, I won't so much say quiet moments, but they had a very different style and different tempo in other parts. It was very, very interesting. There was a part that almost sounded a bit almost carnival-like in the middle of the track, which was very intriguing. So yeah, that was very, very interesting. Like I say, it does sound and feel substantially different to what I heard on the first EP. And it feels like they've also very slightly changed the vocal styling as well. Not so much the harsher vocals, but the cleaner vocals. Because this is one thing I actually said when I listened to that first track, if I remember correctly. I think I actually said that's one of the things that... Well, I even said at the beginning of this video, you know, a lot of metalcore bands have this sort of signature sound of the way the clean vocals are done, and that's one thing that makes a lot of metalcore bands all sound the same. They have this very specific tone in the way that they sing the clean vocals, and you know, they've changed that up slightly here. It doesn't sound... the clean vocals sound slightly different in the way that they're performed than they did in the original track that I first checked out. The harsh vocals, like I said, they do feel a bit heavier, but they haven't changed so much in the tone and the actual performance. They just feel maybe a bit heavier. So yeah, quite an interesting track. And like I said, they have changed the sound quite a bit. You know, maybe like I said, I feel some of the electronic elements have maybe been a bit drowned out by the music, but again, you can still really hear them in other parts. So, you know, they haven't lost that unique sound in any way. It's just not as prominent in certain parts of the track, and maybe that's what they were going for. You know, I don't know. But again, very interesting. You know, I find this band interesting because they've put that element in there, and you know, some bands might not be able to pull it off, but the way that they've put it together, they've managed to make it work really, really well. And I said this as well when I listened to the first track as well. You know, it on paper it doesn't sound necessarily like it should work, but the way they've incorporated that electronic sound into the heavier music, they've managed to find a perfect balance that makes it work. So, you know, maybe where I've said the music seems to drown out some of the electronic elements, if they brought the electronic elements forward a bit more, it might ruin the whole balance of the track. You know, it might not sound right, it might not work. So, you know, maybe they have experimented with how it, you know, how prominent that part is at a certain point in the song. So, you know, maybe they've experimented with, you know, like I said, they've switched up their sound. So, you know, they've played about with it a bit, and they've found this happy balance that they quite like. And, you know, it still sounds really good, and they've still got that unique sound for themselves, which I haven't seen or heard in any other metalcore band that I'm aware of. And, you know, I have heard quite a few. So, yeah, I liked it. It's a shame I forgot to ask them for lyrics. That is completely down to me. That was me just being completely absent-minded, but there's a lot going on at the moment, and I've had a couple of personal issues that have required my attention, so I've not exactly been the most level-headed at the moment. So unfortunately I have failed in that aspect, so I can't really talk about the song and what it means. But it was a good song, good video, very well performed, and like I said, I like this band, and the way they've incorporated such a unique sound into something that, in my opinion, was getting a bit too, into a genre that was getting a bit too samey and uninteresting. There's only so many times you can hear the same sound from umpteen different bands, So it's good that they've injected something new into it. But I'm just repeating myself over and over now, so I'm going to leave that as it is. Now, if anybody would like to suggest a track for me to react to, then please do so. By all means, you can drop a comment in the comment section below, or message me on my Facebook or my Instagram, or you could also message me through Patreon, or you could also help to support this channel, which would of course be a great help to me, since all of my videos get demonetized, so I don't actually make anything from the content that I create here, because I am of course using other people's material, so I can't monetize it. All the bands get all the proceeds from my videos, so there's that. There is an option in Patreon where you can get your suggestion jumped to the front of the queue if you should so desire. There is a limit on how frequently you can do that, but the option is there should you wish it. If you do suggest a track through more regular means, such as YouTube comments, Facebook or Instagram messages, do know it could take me a while to get around to those suggestions, since I get suggested so many new tracks every single day that my list grows faster than I can record the videos. But I do write down every suggestion I get, so it will get done eventually. It just might take me a while to get to it. Also, Metalhead Reacts is a proud supporter of the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, a British-based charity whose main goal is to put an end to hate crimes, and one of those aspects is hate crimes against people of the alternative culture, and that's something that I believe in very, very strongly, something I'm very, very passionate about, and it is actually the reason for the creation of the foundation. And didn't ask you. And it's something that I feel needs to be addressed, something that gets widely ignored and never gets spoken about nearly as much as it needs to. Because, every day all over the world we hear about all these other hate crimes like sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, religious hatred, ableism, etc. We hear these on a daily basis, all the time, from the most heinous and violent of these crimes, where someone is murdered because of the colour of their skin, their religious beliefs, or their sexual orientation, down to the most petty and pathetic of these crimes, where some entitled white woman is calling the police because a family of colour are having a picnic in a public space. We hear these every single day in every facet of the media. But what we don't hear about is these people from the alternative culture who are getting brutally attacked and beaten to within an inch of their lives just because they listen to alternative music. And this is something that goes on every single day all around the world. But we don't hear a single thing about it. The last time there was wide coverage of this was 13 years ago, when Sophie Lancaster and her boyfriend Rob Maltby were violently attacked, brutally beaten so severely that they both ended up in comas. Now, Rob Maltby, he did thankfully survive. He was in a coma for around about a week, maybe a little bit longer. But he thankfully survived the ordeal. Sophie Lancaster, on the other hand, was in a coma for 13 days before she succumbed to her injuries and she died. This young woman was 20 years old and she was beaten to death because of her taste in music and clothing. And like I said, this happened 13 years ago, and it was all over the news. It was all over the news for several weeks, maybe even a couple of months. And eventually, it faded away, as all news does. But we've not heard anything similar since. Now, I know for a fact there have been several hundred, if not several thousand, similar cases like what happened to Sophie Lancaster in that time. And we've not heard a single thing, because no one's died. And that is unacceptable. We shouldn't have to wait for someone to lose their life before a subject like this gets spoken about. We shouldn't have to wait until someone dies before we go, uh-oh, this is actually a problem. Every day people are getting brutally attacked, people are getting hospitalised with broken limbs and sometimes even more life-threatening injuries just because of their taste in music and their taste in clothing. And it's unacceptable that this is getting ignored. About 2 years ago, a young woman in Glasgow, Scotland, she was running a charity gig at a venue, and at one point during the night she had to go back to her home, which was a 5-minute walk away from the venue. She had to go back to her home for whatever reason. She was going to go to her home, then back to the venue. And in the time it took to go from the venue to her home, which was, like I say, a 5-minute walk away, she was attacked twice by the same group of people. Punched, kicked, knocked to the ground. And again, it was a group of people. As it always is. It's always a group of people. But again, kicked, punched, knocked to the ground, brutally attacked. And it could have so easily gone the same way as what happened to Sophie Lancaster, except thankfully someone came by and put an end to it. Someone actually intervened and stopped the attack. But the person who stopped the attack didn't even check to see if she was okay. They just buggered off. She didn't get any help until she went back to the venue to see her friends. Where was this in the news? Why didn't we hear anything about this? Why wasn't this all over the news like any other hate crime? It's unacceptable that these things get ignored. We can't allow what happened to Sophie Lancaster happen to someone else. It's something that should have never happened in the first place. But if we continue ignoring it, that's what's going to happen. It's only a matter of time before it happens again. And that is not acceptable. And this is what the Sophie Lancaster Foundation is all about. They want to raise more awareness of the fact that these sorts of things are happening. They want to put an end to these sorts of things happening. They want more people to start talking about this and realise how big of a problem it really is. Because, someone shouldn't have to fear leaving their home just because they have a different taste in music. You don't attack someone because they like different films or TV shows. You don't attack someone because they like different books or magazines, or because they like different flavoured ice creams to you, do you? So why would you attack someone because they have a different taste in music? It's something that has never, is never registered in my mind because it makes no sense. And even then, you don't see people getting beaten to within an inch of their life because they listen to Neil Diamond. You don't see people getting beaten to within an inch of their life because they listen to classical music or opera. It's only alternative heavy music that seems to cause this reaction, and I cannot for the life of me figure out why. We're often pegged as, we listen to violent and aggressive music. Show me where crimes have been committed by people of the alternative community, and then compare it to the amount of crimes and violent acts that have been committed by people from normal musical communities. They're vastly different. We are not the aggressors here. We're the people that are getting beaten so severely just because we have a different taste in music, and it's unacceptable. We can't let this continue. We can't let what happened to Sophie Lancaster ever happen again. So if you'd like to find out more about the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, there is a link to their website in the description below. You can pop over there, find out what they're working on at the moment, find out what their main goal is, because they can explain it a lot better than I can. And if you can help them out in any small way, obviously don't feel obligated to do so. But if you can help them out in any small way, whether it be like a small donation through their website, or something as simple as one of these Sophie wristbands you can get from their web store. They've got a whole bunch of other really cool stuff that you can look at as well, should you so desire. But the smallest amount can make the biggest difference, and the sooner we bring more attention to this, the sooner we get more people talking about this, the sooner we can help to stamp out prejudice, hatred, and intolerance everywhere. But I'm going to leave that as it is for the time being. Thank you all very, very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.